a vision is not a goal, it's a process. And it will always change.
Yeah.
When we will learn as humanity that perhaps information is written at the subatomic level, we will have a different understanding of the universe. Money in the current societal framework, in the current civilization system, is power. And power does change our brain chemistry. The power that algorithms have in shaping humanity, it's beyond imaginable. So by having centralized media outlet, you are controlling the narrative. Narrative shapes society.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Regenera. I am so incredibly excited to bring to you a conversation with Giannandrea Giammanco, the CEO and founder of Futura, a not-for-profit social venture incubator. I have had the great pleasure of getting to know Giannandrea at Gathering of Tribes. We drove up together. I got to witness his life story and the incredible achievements that he has made, even in the short lifespan that he has had. He's a true polymath and genius who has dedicated his entire life to addressing the Metacrisis and developing a deep and comprehensive understanding of the challenges that we face. In this episode, we unpack his story, his journey, his initial venture, which he sold in his early 20s, and how he has poured his entire fortune into addressing the Metacrisis in a systemic way. He's deeply connected into the systems change and systems investing movement with groups like Twist and Catapult and Tonic. He's a truly heart-centered leader that, in my opinion, embodies the values that we need to transition to this new earth. If you were listening to this portion, that means that you are on the free version of Regenera, which is fantastic, and we are so grateful to have you. If you feel called to become a paid subscriber at any time, you'll get access to the full-length version of this episode. In the second half, we dive even deeper into his story and unpack the theory of change that he holds and really unravel the key elements of the Metacrisis. By becoming a subscriber at just $11 a month at regenera.xyz, you not only support conversations with people like Giannandrea Giammanco, but also for me to visit indigenous leaders and communities all around the world who are truly embodying the regenerative values that we need to transition to a more symbiotic future. You support production and also for us to cultivate community with leaders all around the world who are contributing to a better world for generations to come. I sincerely do hope that you enjoy this episode. If you can, please like, share, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We're a brand new show and we want to get the story of Regeneration out into the world. If you can help us, we would be so incredibly grateful. And we'd love to welcome you into this community of heart-centered entrepreneurs who are giving their all to transition to a symbiotic future. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any notes or comments, please do drop me a DM, and we will see you on the other side. Amazing, brother. Yo, go ahead and just say your full name for me so I've got it on the track.
Well, I'll let's say with the Italian pronunciation.
Yeah, do it. I wanna perfect it, man. I'm gonna get it right.
Okay, so Giannandrea Giammanco.
Giannandrea Giammanco. Perfetto. Amazing, man. Well, dude, so grateful to have this time together. What a incredible synchronicity that we drove up to Gathering of Tribes and just felt right, man. The conversations we had and the fact that this is the first chat of my new show is, amazing opportunity, man. How are you doing today?
Honored to be here and glad to be here. Amazing. I mean, we are here in the nature in Portugal. The weather is perfect. The company, it's amazing. So couldn't be better.
Beautiful, bro. What brought you to this gathering? What was the calling?
I think I'm really trying to understand how collaboration and coordination works at scale. So gathering like these that are more thematic, I think the uniqueness of the Gathering of Tribes compared to all the other gatherings we have been so far, which are in the dozens, is that here they started by creating a coordinated decentralization. So they coordinated to an extent to say, okay, there are going to be different teams and different tribes.
Yeah.
And yet it's decentralized because each tribe has its own themes and workshops.
Nice.
Differently from the standard gatherings, I would say, so far that are all centralized in terms of organization. So you have the main organization and then top down, they decide who shares or says what. So,
Totally, man. And give me a framing. Like, I loved hearing a bit of your journey in terms of the first venture you built. I know that you had an exit and have poured your life into this discovery. I'd love to hear a bit about your journey and just get an overview.
I would say that it all started longer before I even started the first company or organization. I always felt like, I think all of us here, compelled to do something more, to help, to protect. And I think, like many of us here, we had in a way struggles in our lives. I mean, everyone has struggles,
Of course.
but probably the way we process it was more about because I feel the pain, I don't want others to feel the same pain.
Yeah, there was that saying that you had in the car. What was that?
If pain taught me something, is how it feels.
It feels okay. So you went through some stuff, man, and it shaped you.
I think all of us, in a way. I've never believed in the perfect family like we see in the movies. I think pretty much in any wealth class, at any level, you have struggles. I think what changes is how you process it. So do I want to hurt others because I've been hurt? Do I want to protect others because I've been hurt? And this also gives meaning to your pain. Because then you say, okay, well, it sucks, but it has a purpose in it.
So you came out of, these experiences, as I guess we all do, and were reshaped by it, but obviously felt compelled to create something different in the world. What was the first venture that you built? Like, what's been your entrepreneurial path?
Well, I started by mapping out 5 different industries. Well, even before that, my family, like many families, had some financial struggles.
Yeah.
So they were doing well. And then in 2001, things changed. They got frauded by some wealth managers.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, their financial situation took a dark turn.
Wow.
And then my mother, with her own neurodiversity, she wasn't equipped to deal with the challenges that society pushes you to face financially.
Yeah.
Not everyone is really, in a way, made or trained to manage finances.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden things crashed. And I was 11 at the time. And then from 11 to 13, I was trying to understand better, like, what is going on, why things change. And I think we underestimate even young ages, because I think we have our, the genuine blank canvas that sometimes can be wise as well.
Yeah.
And so I started anyway reading about finance. So I bought my first
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Financial markets when I was 13.
Nice. No Lord of the Rings for you, bro. Straight into the financial market.
Yeah. I went into the...
What an image. Okay. What was the book? And what was that process like?
It was the market. It was in Italian. So it was Il Mercato secondo Kepler, which I don't know the name of the book. And Italians, like many nationalities, they tend to change the titles.
Okay.
And movies.
Sure.
So, but anyway, so it was about the financial markets in general. And then I thought, okay, it seems that a lot of, in a way, human challenges and struggles are in a way interconnected with the financial system.
Yeah.
So I need to understand more. And to be honest, I really believed that finance and economics were the source of the problem.
Yeah.
Like a reverse incentive system.
Totally.
And so I started diving deeper. And then around 17, I one thing that really changed my journey was I approached the problem with system mapping.
Okay.
So at the time, obviously there was no internet the way it is today. There were not as many tools as there are today.
Yeah.
So I took a very large sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And then I started stitching it to other large, and it was like probably 4 meters by 4 meters. Like
okay.
Thing. And it took almost a year to map.
What age were you at this time?
Between 16 to 17.
Okay. So you had this foundation of finance, this theory of the root problem, then you mapping these specific industries visually in real form. Yeah. Beautiful.
And I really wanted to understand the consequentiality.
Okay.
So what led to what?
Okay. So not causality per se, but consequentiality. Okay. It's well phrased.
Going in the flow. And at the time also, I came out from a Christian Catholic family.
Yeah.
Easily, obviously, your HQs, and I don't know how to put it. Sorry for my paraphrasing.
No, of course.
And so I really wanted to understand also this interplay of religion, morals, ethics, politics.
Wow, beautiful.
Obviously, Italy has its own challenges with kind of a three-power system.
Okay.
Because you have the church, you have the state, and you have the mafias, which are in a way it's a triangulation of power struggles.
Yeah, interesting.
And so I really wanted to understand, like, how did things turn the way it turned?
Yeah.
And so I started mapping and learning because I wasn't going to school.
You weren't going to school?
No, I left school when I was 13 the first time.
Interesting.
Legally, you can't, but basically you need to show up maybe 3 times a month to be legally.
Wow.
And so I had a lot of time in my hands, and the beauty of being able to pursue what I was curious about. And so I started mapping all of this. And of course, there was a confluence of connections. There are central clusters.
Yeah.
The economic system, of course, is obviously one of them.
Yeah.
The political one, religious one as well, that you can also put into the circle of narratives.
Yeah.
So the establishment, the constitution, the moral code, the religious code, all under the narratives. And then I highlighted few segments and industries that now I could probably define as leverage points.
Okay.
So where could I enter that could give me more leverage to then reshape things? And I also started looking at what we now call blockchain. At the time, it didn't really exist, but basically looking at utilizing technology to create, in a way, bracket, to force transparency in the system.
On the system.
Which obviously, I was naive at the time because I really believed, and I see this happening still all over in impact group and sustainable groups. I really believe that all the challenges we had as humanity were due to lack of understanding, lack of solutions, lack of competence, while nowadays I would say is actually lack of intentionality.
Okay.
So I could have came up with 100 solutions.
Right.
None of them would have mattered because there would have later not have been intentionality, embracing it.
Yeah, fascinating. So this is kind of like the sort of ontological framework that you used to approach your first venture.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to start in biology.
Okay.
So one of the fields where I started learning more was, I was learning finance and biology at the same time. And that's the beauty, I think, where you're not forced into an education path where they bring you into specialization.
Yes.
Where all of a sudden you know everything about nothing, because then the system changes and you're like, oh no, I was studying this for 20 years and now it changed. Again, it's about it. Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally.
But being able to see, and now with the knowledge that we have about system thinking, we start to realize that actually being able to see things holistically, so horizontally and vertically, what can really make the difference in kind of understanding complex things. So it was biology at first, and I really wanted to work around the longevity, because it's something I've seen is that, obviously, is that these things that we are dealing with takes time. And the question is, do we have time as human beings? And in a way, you accumulate a lot of knowledge. You reach a point where you actually know quite a bit, and then you start decaying. Mind falls apart,
You can't implement it where you've learned the wisdom. Totally.
Yeah.
You have to pass it on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you had people like Nikola Tesla or Einstein being alive today, they would be massively contributing to humanity because they accumulated like 100 years or 200 years.
Totally.
Of course, someone will claim the opposite, will say, yeah, but what if you had people like Hitler?
Yeah, of course.
But
this was the theory you were going into, looking at longevity in biology.
Exactly. I would say without taking a tangent.
Sure.
Interesting. This longevity is something that could really bring to emergence. So it's one of the, if you look at humanity as a series of nodes, there are the properties of the system, but there are also the properties of the single nodes. Longevity is one of those. If you change longevity, the entire shape of the species will
change, of course.
Even if you shorten it or you extend it. It's, another one is trust. If you're able to increase the trust across the nodes, emergence would happen. Anyway, it was biology and then finance. And so the first venture, I realized that I could not enter into biology because it's too expensive. You need degrees. Nobody will take you seriously in biology without a degree. Finance is different. Good trader.
I've got the proof.
Yeah, exactly. Track record. These numbers are more important than degrees. In a way, it's more pragmatic in that sense. And most importantly, there was not a financial barrier. So I started working as a delivery pizza.
Yes, amazing. Good for you, bro.
In my trading activities.
So cool.
And so then started as a trader, and then algorithms were entering the space, and then I said, okay, well, I at that time I was like missing sleep almost every night
to do trading.
Yeah, sometimes you had operation transactions going overnight,
of course,
and the stress.
You want to be there to witness.
Yeah. And so algorithms were entering the market, and then I started coding. So first writing algorithms on paper, and then finding ways to coding, and that led to then creating a company all around asset management through algorithm trading, quantitative models for both market prediction and arbitrage.
And you were just learning this all through experimentation, the internet, basically. Yeah, I mean, this is my journey, in effect. I didn't actually have the opportunity to drop out of high school. I kind of wish that I did, because, those years from 13 to 18 that you described, I was really struggling in a system that wanted to put me in a box and follow a set path. And there wasn't the room to explore what I actually was curious about. And I found it suffocating. But similar to you, I went through a mapping activity. Instead of looking at external systems, I had the great pleasure of basically mapping my mind in my room, on my wall. My parents were super understanding, and it was this incredible kind of, self-inquiry, reflection standpoint. And similar to you, I think some of those epiphanies at that early age in adolescence, kind of turning the corner into adulthood, were very formative in, framing how I approached the change that I sought to create in the world. And I took a very dualistic view at the initial point, but I think I later on in life latched onto a similar understanding that, money and its programming are some of the highest leverage points that we have. And I think it's fascinating to see that you took an algorithmic view. You earned the money to trade with, right? You had the blood, sweat, and tears to go into it. It wasn't as if it was somebody else's. You could feel, the pain of losing that money and optimizing the algorithms for your own purpose. And it sounds like you got some momentum and built something quite successful that ended up creating value in the world. Could you give me just a quick run through? What was the overview and where did you end it?
Well, I mean, I think, and that's one of the things I really want to fight for, is access to opportunities. If I didn't have the resources I made at that time, I would have never had the opportunity to travel, learn other languages, meet other people.
Yeah, it's transformative. Yeah.
In a way, I know that given the complexity, the expectation that society and family and culture has on you, very few people could actually take the freedom, in brackets, to choose their own path.
You ended up exiting the company, in effect, right? And that gave you liquidity to travel, explore new things, and created a pathway for what came next, right?
Yeah, and credibility as well, because in a way, credibility is in this world is tied up to success, financial success.
Sure.
So you work in a room, you're a successful asset manager. I was, so when I opened my first company, I was 19, 2 years trading, then I opened a company. Then you are a CEO of a company, and at 22, I was traveling between Shanghai and Singapore, opening offices there, London, Switzerland. And you gain credibility that otherwise no one
You can't.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have been a naive 22 years old with just dreams and
Sure, of course.
some revolutionary, fire inside, and that's about it. Sadly.
Yeah.
What it is.
But it took you to a place where you were obviously able to make something of value. And what was the name of the company and who did you sell it to? Like, what was that whole journey like?
The last one where we integrated everything into was Algo Hybrid.
Algo Hybrid, okay.
So, because the hybrid between the algorithms and the humans.
And humans, yeah.
Which I'm a firm believer even today.
Sure.
Evolution.
The recipe.
Yeah. We exited through a Hong Kong-based fund that basically acquired the assets under management, the IP.
Okay.
And I had the choice. I mean, at the time, I had the choice. I was 27.
Yeah.
I could have 10x'd in a way, in different ways, actually. So I could have remained for the handover period. Which is not necessarily required, but you earn much more.
Sure.
So you can give the company, give the IP, and then say, okay, I'm going to be running it for 5 years.
Yeah, hit these targets.
Yeah. And then maybe having a 800K a year type of salary.
Sure.
But would have kept me locked for 5 years.
Yeah, of course. You wouldn't be where you are.
Or I could have run the company more for another 10 years. That would have been probably the bracket to go next level, then reach the billion plus in assets under management. But I would have been 37 by then. I didn't feel it. So I said, okay, this is enough to give me 8 to 10 years runway. So I can finally focus on both investing in other projects, other people.
Amazing.
And myself. So I decided that the best investment would have been investing in growth, in experiences and in testing. And this gives you another freedom that almost doesn't exist today in the impact space, in the investment world, which is the freedom of doing mistakes. When you get money from investors, from philanthropists, is usually mission law.
Yeah.
You have to do this and you have to achieve it.
Yeah.
While actually in the pioneer journey that you are having, that I'm having, that we are having, we will do 9 mistakes and probably we will get it right once.
Like, you're making me feel much better about my path. This is great.
Yeah, but because we are walking away in uncharted territories.
Yeah.
And if you can capture these mistakes, there are no mistakes at all. They are experiences.
Totally becomes wealth.
And that is connected to the other point, which is sharing. If this knowledge is not clusterized and siloed, even about the mistakes, and is not just in our mind and in our past, but is properly described, explained, contextualized, and being shared across a network, well, then it becomes a stepping stone for other people to say, okay, these are 99 ways to not create change.
Yeah, and this is wisdom, huh? Yeah. It's the embodied experience. It's been internalized and implemented. Yeah.
Pure wisdom, and so someone had to do it.
Yeah. Oh, man, what a process. And it seems like you kept your feet pretty firmly in the ground through all of this as well, and I'd love to hear more about like that transition moment of saying, okay, actually, I'm going to sell this company as it is now, move on, open up to other things, to where you are today, and what you're building. I'd love to, just get a snapshot of what's going on.
Well, I would say that also that at the time, finance is extremely stressful as a department.
Sure.
And I wasn't taking drugs, so I didn't even have, some other type of help,
right.
Supporting this. And I would say the entrepreneurial journey is quite a lonely journey. Even if you're partners and co-founders, if the main glue is money and profit, well, that's by design, very selfish in a way, because it's a competition. People collaborate to compete.
Yes, of course.
So ultimately, everyone is on its own, especially if your co-founders are not sharing a bigger mission or vision.
Right. The bigger change in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I did so many mistakes, of course, in kind of choosing the people to work with. I was very kind, very naive, very altruistic. And in the current financial system, of course, altruism is a weak spot. to be greedy, you need to be aggressive, cunning, manipulative. And I didn't want to trade those values. Never wanted.
Good for you, bro. It's an amazing core.
Well,
it's not easy. I've seen the other happen. When money flows, man, it's changed people's neurochemistry. It's very powerful.
Yeah. You touched a key spot here. Money in the current societal framework, in the current civilization system, is power. It is a form of power. And power does change our brain chemistry.
100%.
So, but there is, I have no pride or shame. I don't see any merit or fault. As a matter of fact, I don't even believe in free will. So I never decided to be who I am. And I was just in this way, there would be no other option for me.
Sure. So give me a snapshot of what you're doing now. Like, what's the spread of ventures that you have under tow? What are you guys exploring? Like, give me an overview.
And these are a number of great questions. Complex on their own. So we started focusing on system change. As soon as I closed from the financial side, that took a couple of months to figure out things and say, okay, where are we going to move next? And I asked some of the team members in my previous company, who wants to join the journey. And some of them decided, we want to continue the journey along. And we started from venture building.
Okay.
So we founded a venture builder called Futura. Because we said, okay, innovation can change things. The problem with innovation today is that it's not purpose-driven, it's profit-driven.
Sure.
And in a way, we can change the way innovation is done. And so we started setting up a non-for-profit, socially focused venture builder.
Very interesting. And
I would say that at the time in Singapore, where we were, this was very, I would say, uncommon.
Sure. Even today. It's a unique mix.
And also, I was very optimistic, I have to say, because at the time, 2017, the word impact was started to resonate a little bit more, sustainability and so on. And so I believed I did a quick search in Southeast Asia, and there were dozens of impact funds, impact incubators, impact hubs. And I started a journey of basically reaching out to every single one of them and say, okay, what are you doing? What can we learn? And so on. And I realized after a year and a half that it was all impact washing.
Impact washing,
One after another, the main focus was profits.
Wow.
Even government entities asked to say, okay, we are here for good, for impact, bottom line, profits. And I was like, okay, and because I'm in a way genuine, I give the benefit of doubt.
Sure.
Self-question. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not seeing it.
I am. Of course.
So I have to look better. I have to look deeper. I need to get in touch with the right people. Know where to be.
Dude.
And I was like, oh, God. And then we started a community around.
Okay.
So we started reaching out to people, creating meetup groups. And the first meetup around impact and venture building, 2 people turned up. I was like, okay,
The proof's in the pudding.
Not a gathering. This is
an intimate meeting.
Yeah. Nevertheless, persistency. So we did another one. And 4 or 5 people showed up. Fast forward, after the 5th or 6th, we had 160 people showing up.
Beautiful.
Consistently.
Beautiful.
In Singapore. And we came to be the 2nd or 3rd largest community in Singapore across meetup.
Amazing.
So consistency
is the recipe, man.
Yeah, absolutely. With all the mistakes and so on. But then we realized that there was a massive gap between people getting together and action taken.
Of course.
Massive gap. So even if we had all the blueprints to run venture builders in a different way, some capital to seed startups and projects as well, we lacked leaders, selfless leaders.
Wow.
So that was a big issue. And I would say in general, I mean, I don't want to generalize, of course, about cultures, but in Singapore, in Southeast Asia, in some of the Southeast Asian countries, everything is geared up to maximum profit, maximum wealth, because wealth is the ultimate goal in life. Wealth, and I mean, you can't even get a family if you don't have wealth. It changes the way you have a family.
Yeah,
in a way.
Fundamentally.
Yeah. While I would say more in economies that already have been through a cycle of wealth, poverty, and so on, you have other values kicking in and say, friendship is more valuable perhaps than money, or happiness is more valuable than money, or balances.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting view.
But countries where you had fast, rapid financial growth, you're still in the race. Rat race. And so
interesting.
Selfless leaders were lacking. And then people that could actually commit time and effort to seed new ventures. And of course, financially, you cannot afford to seed startups at scale in such economies because it's too expensive. I mean, a tech developer will cost a base of $5,000, $8,000 a month.
Sure.
Easy. And another thing that I have to say is that solving problem costs money. Exploiting problem gives you profits. These part of the perverse incentives.
Really interesting.
And this is part of the problem, because if you really need to find solution, you need to invest in errors, in mistakes, in R&D, in hardware, perhaps. And all of this comes with great expenses. And that's why also the entire economic system, funding mechanisms behind innovation are not catered to solve problems at scale. Exploiting, yes, of course, exploit loopholes, financial loopholes, borderline things, unlawful practices. Is very hard to be able to make quite a number of, quite some profit by actually doing good.
Absolutely.
It doesn't last long because.
So this is the framing of you looking at, creating a not-for-profit, socially focused venture builder. How to inform, the structure of what you did, the capital you put into it, and I guess the kind of rules upon which you decide how to shape a brief about a problem you want to solve, the team that you form. Like, I'm curious to, get an understanding of what it looks like.
Yeah, and to do this, you need certain ingredients. Team, the financial structures, and you have, I would say, also a number of point of failures that we haven't solved yet, as I would say, communities, including the funding mechanisms and the ownership models.
Okay.
But anyway, we started that journey there, and then we realized, okay, we are in the wrong place, and I didn't want to accept or believe that. I wanted to say, because here there is a problem, that's where we have to be. But then if you look at path dependence, you say, okay, is this where the problem started or the problem manifests?
Interesting. Yeah.
And all of this is a journey. It's really
a wild ride.
Yeah. And his brain cracking to think about it and say, okay, am I dealing with symptoms or am I dealing with the root problems? And then, of course, the root problems are another big part of the conversation. But we started this journey, moving out of Southeast Asia, finding the right people.
Okay. So moving out of Southeast Asia, finding the right people, but you obviously had some kind of fund structure, right? You had capital to use, or is this just your own personal capital?
Personal.
Okay, right.
Yeah, no investor. I've tried. To be honest, I've tried. I couldn't find people that wanted to bet on this.
Interesting. But you really poured yourself into this. I remember.
All in.
All in.
I didn't invest money somewhere else. I'm not, some people might say, well, you have a lot of savings, you have passive incomes. I really dislike the idea of passive incomes. Because I believe that for someone that is making money without working, there is someone else that is working without earning money.
Fascinating. You've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, finance is a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Some economists would argue and say, no, finance is not a zero-sum game because you are creating value. I think many people are realizing that, are we creating really value here, or are we exploiting natural resources and therefore we're actually borrowing future resources that will cost us 50 times more to heal.
Yeah.
And the problem with many economists is that they just look at the numbers,
of course,
not the
whole system.
Holistically.
Yeah. Okay. So you had this view basically, and it really propelled you to put the small fortune that you made through your exit into this pursuit of how do I create new ventures led by selfless leaders to change the world in meaningful ways that really address the root cause of this systemic crisis that we're facing.
Which, of course, I mean, at the time, I believed that could have been a great leverage point.
Yeah.
I mean, I still believe it's a good leverage point.
Yeah.
I was not understanding the root problems of human societies, not at the time.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's probably still unraveling, but I think, in our conversation on the write-up, it seemed like we're getting glimpses, and there's resonance between other people around like, okay, there's patterns emerging here that we have confidence around. What are some of the ventures that you've built in this, pursuit?
I'd say a couple of very interesting ones. One is around food.
Okay.
So at the time, 2017-18, the food challenge started to kind of appear. People saying, okay, population is going to grow to 10 billion people. At the time, we were still rising very fast. I think now we are slowing down a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, now many people are saying, well, we will probably never reach 10 billion.
Sure.
Because of climate change and all.
Yeah, everything else is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the time, we were still on the hockey stick curve.
Population.
And food was one of the issues because between 8 billion and 10 billion, you need to grow the production by 25-30%. And, there is not practically any available land for farming anymore unless we go into deforestation.
Yeah.
And deforestation will come with other issues. So we said, okay, let's start seeding projects in that space. And to me, it was a massive learning journey. I mean, that's the beauty of, being immersed in venture building is that
totally
you learn a lot. What I've learned in the 5 years, Simon, of running this venture build is like so much knowledge across all the spectrum because you ask and say, okay, why are you doing this? Or tell me about this, and you learn. And then when you look about farming, I mean, you learn that it's really about power plays between who is supplying fertilizers, who is supplying chemical pesticides, the entire oil industry. I mean, I think the majority of people really underestimate the role of the oil industry
across. Yes, totally.
The nitrogen chain, the fertilizers are produced. What are the largest countries producing fertilizers today? And then you realize, look, they overlap with the largest oil producers. And then you start also to learn, okay, why are we doing things that in a way that exploits the soil? It's basically a lose-lose-lose system. You're killing biodiversity.
Yep.
You are sucking dry you're basically killing the soil.
Yeah, literally, it's alive.
Exactly, it's alive. Yeah. So you're killing the soil. You're basically jeopardizing the future of the next generation. I mean, if you kill the source of food, well, it's a very dangerous slope to.
Absolutely.
And then you say, okay, but wait, the knowledge that this is dangerous. I mean, we know it's like more than 100 years that researchers are saying, look, this is not the way to go.
Sure.
Because it's very short-lived and short-term. And yet, financial interest, but most importantly, power interest.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because by creating a system where people are dependent now from your fertilizers, you make people dependent from the system, whatever that system is.
Absolutely.
And addiction is one of the most powerful way to control humans.
Yeah. And when you have financial strings attached, it's not even just addiction. It's almost like slavery.
And so if the means of production are completely dependent from who you are as a provider of the panacea or the solution, then it puts you in a very strategic position if you are power seek.
So this is kind of the problem framing in farming and food that you looked at for the first venture that you guys built, this venture builder, really, Futura.
Really systemic, and we looked at what are the best solutions available.
Yeah.
So we started reaching out to experts across the world, literally calling up people, say, look, do you have an hour, 2 hours? Will you give some time to tell us how we can solve the problem?
Wow.
And surprisingly, most people, I would say 90% of the people say, yes, I'm a very busy person, but it seems that what you're doing is worth my time.
Yeah.
And so we started looking at solutions, and we came up with 3 different solutions. Permaculture, obviously, is one of the key ways. Agroforestation seems to be ideal.
Yeah.
So multi-layered ecosystem building where you can bring back water, microclimates, resilience in the soil, and resilience to pathogens. And then if you want to use technology, we look specifically into bioponic technologies, which is is vertical farming, but it's not hydroponic or aqua.
Okay, interesting.
So it's not relying on chemical fertilizers,
right?
Like in the case of hydroponic, it's all chemical.
Sure.
It's not relying on fishes, like in the case of aqua. But it's actually producing organic nutrients through a series of procedures, bacteria, enzymes, and so on, and then putting these liquid fertilizers, organic.
Fascinating. Interesting.
Basically, with the current available land, you can increase potentially even 30x per single hectare. So you could feed 30 times more the amount of people because you can go vertical. Wow. Most importantly, you can have more cycles. So if you then go into the cycle of CO2, feeding CO2 to plants, which is going to be another key for decarbonization of society. I mean, CO2 is one of the best fertilizers for plants.
Yeah.
They need CO2. Yeah. So we have abundance of CO2.
Right.
And instead of creating filters and machines, I mean, plants are.
Do a great job.
Yeah, exactly. Then this CO2 is then released with, of course, decomposition of the plant, but you can tackle that part under at some point in the chain. And then the light cycles. So if you do controlled vertical farming, you can have 2, 3, 4 times the amount of cycles that normally you would have.
Sure. To expedite the growth process.
Yeah, and a plant can easily sustain about 16 hours of sunlight or artificial light, so you can really boost the production rate. But anyway, these are
the insights, right, that lead you towards, okay, we have a thesis about how to address this problem. Yeah. And then have you built like specific companies within this bio?
Yeah. So we said, okay, how much would it cost us to create the first prototype?
Nice.
And because there were a number of experts in different countries from US to South Africa, how much would it cost us to actually invite them where we are, or getting them to ship, some tools and things. And surprisingly, people started to ship us enzymes and seeds and soil samples and liquid fertilizer samples so that we could analyze it and run it in laboratories.
Yeah. And you're receiving all this at this physical hub in Tuscany?
Yeah, in Tuscany. And we did it in Tuscany just because of COVID. COVID started, and my passport is Italian, so I had to go to Italy, pretty much. And we said, okay, well, since we are here, we might as well get into action physically. So we opened this hub in the town, and it was the only shop in town where people could enter without buying anything. We had nothing to sell. We were not even a library. People could come there, stay there, spend all night. We were open like from maybe 10 a.m. until 4 a.m.
Wow.
So people at night coming, having great conversation. In maybe 3 months, we reached 30 plus people there working on projects, studying, learning.
Fascinating, bro. Such a cool spot. What's the name of the hub?
Futura.
Futura. Okay.
Futura.
So this is the physical base that emerged, and these guys were shipping you enzymes all over the world with this thesis of how to like do a different type of vertical farming, 30x production.
We also have some pictures of the hub.
Amazing.
Later.
Yeah, love to see it.
And we put this bioponic system, a few bioponic system in the place.
Okay.
So
you're prototyping in situ. Amazing. I love that.
It's in the front window, so people were walking by and seeing all these plants and these lights, and they were like, "What is
going on here?"
And then you, and then you had people actually passing by and say, I am a microbiologist. What are you doing? People say, I work with seeds, and the first phase, I don't know in English how you say from seed to
germination.
And we met amazing people. Just the presence of showing up, like we are here, and this is such a powerful thing. We don't even need to, in a way, force connections if you're able to be a beacon and say, here we are.
Totally.
Because like us here, I mean, we already have this energy. We already have these feelings. We just have to find each other.
So beautiful. Yeah, and I love the in-person element as well. I think there's something that you really can't replicate online. It's just impossible to build that level of trust and to collaborate in real time outside of a physical environment. And so you're prototyping these bioponic spaces in Futura at this hub and developing a business model to test this commercially. Is that right?
Yeah. And trying to raise capital because I could fund it only until a certain point.
Sure. Otherwise, you're...
Yeah. Especially with hardware. Hardware is expensive. Hardware and R&D is serious costs. And we started the journey of reaching out to investors, angel investors. I mean, the business model was sound because you increase production with lower space.
Yeah.
You have margins. And we did find zero investors. Zero.
No investors.
No investors. Like we spoke.
And you're really well connected to like this systemic investing community, Catapultonic, and nobody wanted to put capital towards this. Why?
I mean, I to be honest, at that time we weren't connected in networks like Catapult.
Okay.
Tonic.
I was wondering, like, surely this would be bread and butter for them.
Not at the time. Plus, with COVID, the entire VC space.
Of course.
Kind of crashed. So it was just a bad time. Nevertheless, it's one of the projects and things that is still in our
portfolio.
Yeah, in our portfolio. People are still working on it. It didn't raise capital, but still the people are active.
And it's a stream of knowledge. Yeah, it didn't scale. Okay, so this is one of your experiments within this pathway around trying something, putting capital towards it, and you've got the learning, and now it's embedded in the hub, it's in the walls, you guys are moving the systems forward. Okay. And give me just like a high level snapshot overview of the other initiatives, just so I can see the sort of big picture lay of the land of what else you guys have built within Futura.
And then another venture and that one that's where is actually our current focus.
Okay.
We started building at that time, 2019. It was like November 2019.
Okay.
We started developing a platform to transform this innovation process from only offline and reduced to a community to actually global.
Beautiful.
So creating a kind of pipeline.
Amazing.
Pieces that are vertically integrated. So we started developing this platform to connect experts with investors, with funders.
Love this, bro.
Funders.
I absolutely love this.
And then because we had the experience in algorithms from finance. And also in 2010, we brought to Google Venture a prototype, and we reached out to a number of VCs. And we reached out also to Facebook for a matchmaking algorithm prototype to enhance social networks, because we said, look,
so much potential.
People are not meeting offline.
It's a really...
and we didn't know how bad it would have became.
Right.
We didn't know power dynamics. We didn't know the power of keeping people addicted to social media rather than
gathering in person.
So because even at the time we were working with algorithms, we said, we can predict behaviors on economics. We can also predict behaviors in relationships and other things. And by the way,
super interesting.
On the hub that we had on Futura, 3 people got married. each other.
Wow.
People that matter
Really deep.
because resonance, because
Yeah.
like-minded people,
Oh, this is super cool.
and cross nationalities. So
Yeah.
not even
Yeah, of course.
so.
Wow. Okay, so you approach these companies with this view around an algorithm for matching people. Yeah.
And so anyway, nobody gave us resources at the time in 2010 as well, because they didn't seem to care about matchmaking.
Sure.
Now I can, understand why. But anyway, we said in 2019, what if we use similar algorithms to actually match investors with founders and experts and so on? And so we started this journey of tech development, rough, finding good developers, mission aligned, and so on is not easy.
No, of course.
In every sector or industry. And so we started pushing this development forward, infusing all our learning and ethicalities. And that's the focus that we're still having right now. So we launched the platform in beta 6 months ago.
Is this under Futura or is it its own? Symbiosis? Okay.
Yeah, we decided to give it another name because we didn't want to have it tied up to an organization. Because one of the things that we have seen is that power has to be distributed.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's one of the challenges with the infrastructure builder today. They still believe that my theory of change is the theory of change.
Sure.
While our approach is more like we know that we don't know.
Yeah.
What we can do is developing, being steward of infrastructure and development until someone else comes along. And someone else should be the community, I believe.
Yeah.
So this infrastructure should take life on its own, decision on its own. Of course, you need to infuse ethics and values because otherwise it can become like blockchain. So something that started, with some
of course
mission,
Yeah.
And then that was completely distorted.
By the capitalist machine. Yeah, of course.
The internet was supposed to be shared, open source, the best way of communication ever. And now it's basically owned by 10 companies.
Right.
90+% of the internet is running to the server of Google, Amazon, AWS, and the Chinese counterparts in China. So in a way, you need to create mechanisms to avoid power concentration.
Okay, interesting. So this is kind of the pathway that you went to when you were looking at how to match networks and really analyze and understand the different nodes of the network, the relationships between them. Symbiosis is the product which you've used to do this, but it's also giving you a lens upon a kind of broader view of the challenges that we face as a species and really butting up into these kind of undercurrent yet seemingly immovable power dynamics that are so entrenched into our society. And without seeing them, it's kind of like, what is going on here? Yeah. Can you unpack a little bit about what you've learned in the context of power and what's going on and what your insights are here?
Well, and we are about to release about a couple of 100 pages on power dynamics, system change, leverage points. All of these open source for free.
Beautiful.
For the sake of humanity. And most importantly, for the sake of sparking conversation.
So nice, man.
Where we try to analyze power from different angles, like the path dependence, how power leads to more power, how inheritance creates a vicious cycle where power is accumulated, held, and then given forward, and how this accumulates at points of attraction, but also at the genomic level. Neuropsychology level. So where does this thirst of power comes from?
Yeah.
Is it hardwired in our genetics?
Sure.
Or are we predisposed to power and then the current system and its path dependence make us seek even more power?
Sure.
Concentrate. Of course, and this is super controversial, super complex. You could have people arguing all day long about it.
Right.
Personally, I would say in our work, we don't necessarily side one approach or the other or care particularly about the outcome.
Okay.
We just want to learn and understand. So what it is, without judgment, without feelings.
Okay.
Which allows you to navigate controversy rather than stopping and say, okay, no, we cannot touch it. So that's one challenge, power dynamics. And then another thing that we've noticed connected to matchmaking algorithms is that connecting people is not enough. This is where so many networks, like we were saying, we mentioned a few, really crash.
Okay.
Because even if you get 20 people, I mean, we are in a gathering.
Yeah.
How many people from this gathering are we going to be collaborating for?
Sure. Perfect.
Maybe 2, maybe 3, but we are 500 people here.
Yeah.
So what's happening? And then you have fragmentation, you have isolation, and you have conflicting visions.
Yes.
Let people say, no, we need to degrowth. We need to all go into eco-villages and forget about technology.
Sure.
Let's go back to our origins. And then you will have
Neolithic.
Yeah. And then you will have people the opposite way saying, no, we need to go into hyper technology. We need to merge with machines. We need to enhance our brain with technology.
Yes.
Evolve.
Yeah, bro.
And so even if you start matching people, let's say you start accelerating the formation of groups, and then these groups are not harmonized.
Yeah.
Then what you have usually in human civilization is that when there is conflicting visions, you have conflicts.
Conflict, of course.
You have frictions. You have people attacking each other, or instead of supporting each other, taking the ground. I don't know how you say it in English, but. And then you have another challenge, which is the funding mechanism, because this needs energy.
Yeah.
In the current framework, it's either money or time. You can buy time with money. And so you have to in a way follow the flow of energy. So if you have all these groups that are disconnected, only a few will get resources and then will starve. So, and this, of course, working at the infrastructure level gave us this unique overview to see how collaboration dynamics and power dynamics and money dynamics flow, and where are the bottlenecks, where are the dead ends, and what are the points of harmonization. And so then you go to the next level of becoming more collaboration and coordination designers, thinkers. So it becomes a matter of forget about the outcome per se, start focusing on the processes. And we were talking about it yesterday.
Yeah.
A vision is not a goal, it's a process. It always changes, and it will always change.
Yeah.
When we will learn as humanity that perhaps information is written at the subatomic level, we will have a different understanding of the universe. And we will realize that entropy, for example, it can be reversed. And then visions will change.
Yeah.
Humans will say, okay, wait, we have to focus on reverting entropy, for example.
Yeah, fascinating.
The question is, how do you get there? And there's something very important here that we learned at the crossroad of consciousness and particle physics.
Okay.
Which is the layers of consciousness. So there is the possibility that consciousness on its own is a postulate, can be observed, cannot be understood.
Okay.
And if that is the case, it might also be possible that we can observe lower level of consciousness. We are not equipped to understand higher levels of consciousness.
Sure.
So, for example, we look at galaxies and we see that they form like neural pathways. We cannot understand. Not yet. Not with our tools.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I hadn't heard this lens.
And so if you apply the same to humanity, you say, okay, we have 8 billion nodes, 8 billion neurons. Is it one brain? And if it is one brain, like in our case, I cannot perceive my neurons. My neurons are not aware of me. We coexist.
Yeah.
Our mind is there, is formed by neurons. None of us can see each other.
Yeah.
We're totally separated.
Fascinating.
And so we said, okay, what if with the technologies that we build, and we started building the interlink, which is another piece of the platform, technology infrastructure, with these purposes, what if you can link and bridge all these neurons to make collective consciousness emerge?
Fascinating.
And that's where you can start to have something closer to shared governance and democracy and so on, because then you say, okay, it's not about unified vision, it's about unifying perhaps feelings. So we started creating these feedback mechanisms where potentially you could have 8 billion people saying, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
This is how I perceive.
My subjective lived experience.
Yes. And then when you start assembling all this feedback, you might see the rise of collective consciousness and perhaps emergence.
Yes. Yes. Interesting.
8 billion people giving you 8 billion one
Yeah.
output. And that one would be emergence. And so that last point could be the unified one. I mean, of course, all of this is highly hypothetical, experimental. It's probably worth pursuing because in the process of doing, you will learn so many things.
Totally. Yeah, but it's a really interesting view. I mean, you're kind of taking the same process that you did as a teenager, and continuing to unravel and unfold these systems and look at it from a pretty radical multidisciplinary lens, and I think this desire to kind of get at the root cause of what's going on and settle for nothing less than at least the overarching thesis with the intellectual humility to say, I don't know. Yeah, we really don't know, but we think there's something here, and we're willing to put money towards this. And the fact that you're putting your own personal capital, I think, speaks volumes of the journey that you've been on and your recognition of, I guess, what life is about, and what it means to be a part of something bigger and to make these contributions. And I love this view. I almost see it as a metaphor of like a beehive. It's like honeybee consciousness, where we all as individuals are cells within this broader view. And it's very easy to kind of live within our own cell and, be focused on the nectar that's near us. But actually we're connected, geometrically to everything and everyone else. And I think this narrative around collective consciousness is really fascinating because there's a desire, it seems, a deep, almost visceral desire of humanity to really replicate what already is through technology. And I think the internet, in a way, is a form of us looking at nature in this vast, web of life that somehow communicates. The fungi, the trees, the birds, all living beings are in this tapestry of being and coexisting. And the internet seemed to be this kind of initial manifestation, and that created this acceleration of information, of consciousness. Suddenly all of humanity can be aware of the same events within hours.
We are here due to the internet.
Totally. Yeah. And then artificial intelligence seems to be a further, acceleration of this phenomena where we, now have information that is, being increasingly processed, condensed. And now we have these incredible large language models that seem to be adding a spin to this centripetal acceleration. Where do you feel like this is headed? To me, it feels like this pursuit of collective consciousness and this idea is really reaching a convergence point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a rough journey, kind of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Because like every technology that human basically has discovered has been weaponized.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Nuclear power. We could have infinite energy. Or
nuclear bombs
is a CK, but maybe you could use it for enhancing humanity. Maybe it could.
This is a crazy idea.
Yeah,
totally. And it seems like every big discovery has this duality to it. It's a double edge.
Gunpowder, TNT, Nobel. The Nobel Prize exists because someone said, "Oh wow, we can now have people not dying in caves." Due to mining, we can just blow it up.
Yeah.
And then someone else took it and said, maybe another people. And some more people died. And out of the guilt and feeling that the Nobel Prize came to be. And all these dilemmas, of course, that scientists had of like, is this technology going to be utilized for the sake of humanity or not?
Yeah. So with AI.
So AI, specifically under the genomic issues. So we will see the rise of viruses, pathogens, pandemics, and even worse, we will see people starting to tinkering with genomics.
Of course. We've got CRISPR and everything else that enables.
Yeah. And we now start to see that you can remove a lot of things, including critical thinking on the genomic level. So you could build, or empathy.
Yeah.
So you could create armies of people that just obey. They're genetically hardwired to know questions. So, don't develop metacognition, no empathy, no guilt.
It's the lowest strata of consciousness.
Yeah. Or, you could just use it to have machines. Having that. And machines by design, they don't have compassion and so on. So either ways, you have something extremely dangerous in the hands of people that are terrible at wielding power for the sake of humanity. Because if you look at the current power structure, it is obvious and clear that that minority is not caring for the well-being of humanity.
Yeah, of course.
Proactively.
They have no incentive to.
Yeah, no incentive to. And so when you look at where this is going, obviously you see, okay, let's not be naive. Let's not say it's going to be utilized for good. It's going to be utilized for bad. And a lot of people like us will feel even more urgencies to come together and say, okay, no, we need to do something to counterbalance.
Right.
And so this will lead also to the rise of a counter force of people getting together, unifying, because normally we wouldn't. If everything was perfect, you would be maybe surfing. I would be, playing music or vice versa.
Yeah, of course.
We'll be here.
Totally.
So this is unifying us, and it will accelerate the rise of, some people might say, a network state. A lot of people say, we are bounded by not culture, language, but by purpose and ethics and vision.
By vision. Vision becomes the organizing principle. Yeah, interesting.
Some people are already building operative system. We are working with projects on operative system for future communities and generations that are not designed with the current systems of exploitation and manipulation. What I believe that ultimately this will lead to is unity. We were one at the beginning.
Yes.
First cell, the first piece, cell, and so on. And I think we will be one again within the next 50 years. So
beautiful
technologies that will unify brain-to-brain communication. And we will probably see the rise of blended consciousness in our lifetime, where your memories become my memories, where my consciousness will blend with yours, ultimately giving the rise to emergence.
Totally. And, this is something I've experienced personally through psychedelic journeys with friends and a sacred setting, using medicine for this purpose, not only of, personal growth and healing, but also for exploration of consciousness and the possibility of emergence, where we don't know what surfaces on the other side. But I think this is also an interesting dynamic around, we can ingest substances with intention along other humans and experience a glimpse of this kind of unified field of consciousness, and that almost blurring of being, where, like you described, your memories become my memories, or mine become yours. Identity becomes obscured. The default node network is no longer intact. And suddenly we have this sense of being that isn't constricted to a time and matter bound self. And so I think this is a really interesting phenomena that I'm excited about. It feels like there's the possibilities for emergence happening, and how fascinating is it that psychotechnologies like psychedelics are on one edge, but on the other side, there's the hardware side, things like Neuralink and these other technologies that are trying to bring this in force at like an infrastructure level.
And like OI, I don't know if you're...
No, tell me.
Is kind of very, very niche, but it's one of those where we see tremendous potential, which is organic intelligence. So 3D printed scaffold where you grow neural cells in it, and you can connect it to devices. So you're basically bridging the efficiency of kind of electrical communication that can go very far, and you can attach it to endless amount of devices, antennas and wherever, with the efficiency, the energy efficiency of chemical.
Fascinating. Wow. Okay.
So AI are extremely powerful, underrated, I would say.
Okay.
And
I haven't even heard of it. Yeah.
It's very, very niche. And the other thing with OI is that they can be integrated with human bodies. So you can grow an OI.
Fascinating. Wow. Okay.
Bring it. And when you integrate it, so they've done these experiments with mice, mice basically their cognitive ability got enhanced overnight by 25-30%. Because, and probably, this is of course super experimental. There are so many challenges with AI. You're always one little step away from some massive breakthrough. If someone solves one, or
these key,
then it unfolds.
Trim tab pieces, massive leverage. This is fascinating. Yeah, I think it feels like humanity on all fronts is at these kind of edge of breaking points. My brother works in nuclear fusion, and we have the possibility of breakthrough, clean, abundant, renewable energy within our lifetime, which changes everything. If we're no longer relying on fossil fuels, but we have this source of clean, abundant, renewable energy, society begins to look very different. And similarly, if we have breakthrough with artificial general intelligence or organic intelligence, it's like there are so many different edges of breakthrough emergence that,
and there is a confluence of it.
Yes.
And it is accelerating.
Totally.
So it's a super exciting time. And if I had, to give also to someone that is listening, a hint, some people say, I hear a lot, but I want to see also practical steps.
Yeah.
I would say to start looking or investing in evolutionary leaps. We have identified, we have run some algorithms to identify and map leverage points and evolutionary leaps and where they could come up. So where could emergence arise? And you cannot identify, of course, with tremendous accuracy, but you can get closer to it. You can say, okay, these parameters are the one that can trigger emergence. Is to look in getting groups between 100 and 1,000 people, and investing between $10 million and $100 million. That it takes. So if you do that, and is very specific on a technology that can propel humanity forward, even on psychedelics,
Yes.
People find out that serotonin receptors are stimulated in a certain way by DMT and other molecules, and that gives an instant boost of neuroplasticity, metacognition, compassion. Well, you're dealing with something extremely powerful.
While also figuring out how to navigate the downsides of those experiences and false insight and all these other things that come from it. It's super interesting. And I think that's what we're seeing in this network society, network state movement, is entire societies being built around pretty radical ideas of the future with a desire to embrace innovation. And I think this for me is one of the major trends that I feel will shape humanity, is this massive divergent exploration of, okay, what could society be like if we really leaned into this? And I think as climate change continues to rise and the impacts of rising temperatures and cities become increasingly volatile places, we will see more and more groups, like you described, of 100 to 2,000 people gathering together on a parcel of land, putting their hands in the soil, regenerating forests, but also leaning deeply into technology in specific ways, building labs, maker spaces. And I think what you're talking about here in this really broad systems view with an intelligence towards the conditions for emergence has enormous possibility, especially within this network state or network society framework, because I think we need the safety of new social containers. We need the freedom to be able to try new things without the pressures of downcast eyes in society. And I think there's so much here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this amazing conversation. If you're listening to this message, it means you're one of our free subscribers. This show is entirely supported by community members just like you, who believe in the power of dreaming of a new earth and working to understand indigenous wisdom, to cultivate the kinship worldview, and to propagate a more harmonic and symbiotic way of living with nature for generations to come. Check out regenera.xyz to become a paid subscriber. There you'll get access to the full archive, full-length episodes, and get invitations to exclusive events and get discounts on retreats. The contribution is a small amount every month. If you do decide to become a paid subscriber, we'll also send you an invitation to an exclusive community of people who have made that full commitment to embody the regenerative values in their everyday stuff of life, as well as in their work. I would be so incredibly grateful to meet you, to get to know you and your story, and to build an intimate community of regenerative leaders all around the world who are studying indigenous wisdom and leveraging the power of modern science and emerging technology for a symbiotic future.